When it comes to epic SpongeBob adventures, the first SpongeBob movie and the SpongeBob musical are considered to be at the top of that list. After all, the first movie is a quotable classic for early 2000s kids everywhere, while the musical is a modern-day hit that turned out better than anyone was expecting. But which one is the best SpongeBob adventure? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is the first SpongeBob movie versus the SpongeBob musical. As always, many of our comparison categories come down to personal preference. Both of these productions are amazing in their own right, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Now, we're gonna start with the thing that's at the center of every good SpongeBob product, and that of course are the fun and lovable characters. Starting with the movie, it should be noted that SpongeBob, Patrick, and Plankton are all in top form here. With the BFF duo specifically, they're right in that sweet spot of being hilarious, lovable, and silly, without coming off as babyish or completely flanderized. Plankton also manages to be a true threat while still having plenty of his own jokes. Unfortunately, one critique that has been put against this film is that it's very much the SpongeBob, Patrick, and Plankton show, as they're the only characters who get any real spotlight. Both Krabs and Squidward get taken out of the film pretty early on, and Sandy only gets like 1.5 lines. It's a bit of a shame that a show loved for its fun ensemble of main characters is only really using 3 of them, and it seems like even the crew knew this, given the larger cast of Sponge Out of Water. But what the movie lacks in legacy characters, it does make up for in new characters. Mindy, Dennis, and even the new King Neptune are all loved by fans, so at least there's still some variety in the cast. Dennis is a great secondary antagonist that makes for a good continuous threat, while SpongeBob and Patrick are on the road.
This is what a real mustache looks like.
And while she may be a bit one-note and not all that interesting, Mindy still has her fun moments, like with her famous stalling scene in the 3rd act. The musical, meanwhile, manages to give all the main characters a bit of spotlight without making things feel too crowded. Nearly all the characters get either an arc, an awesome moment or song, or both, and it just makes things feel more well-rounded. It's also nice to see characters like Pearl and Karen get much more attention, while with characters like Squidward and Patrick, we get some interesting insights and angles on them that we don't typically get in the show. Squidward isn't just someone seeking fame, he's actually following a similar arc to SpongeBob, where he wants others to see him as more than who he is. It's actually very sad to hear Squidward acknowledge that he's a lonely loser, all while trying his best to deny it. Patrick is more than just the comedy relief sidekick. We also get to see how much he wants his opinions and ideas to be acknowledged and listened to. There are plenty of great character moments like that, as well as really good character interactions, and it just adds a bit of extra personality and relatability to both the cast and the overall story. For these reasons, in this category, we have to go with the musical. Its characters just feel more fleshed out, and it's nice to see the entire cast being used in some sort of way. Next, we're going to take a look at the stories of each musical, since you can't have an adventure without a good story. In all honesty, both the movie and the musical have a quote hero's journey / save the world from disaster type of plot. The difference comes in the type of threat. The movie is man versus man, since Plankton is the driving force of the conflict, while the musical is man versus nature, i.e. trying to stop a terrifying and deadly volcano.
I love being purple!
While the musical is able to make the story feel a bit more personal thanks to its great use of characters and side plots, the movie starts off personal from the very beginning. After all, even after Plankton takes over Bikini Bottom, the ticking clock remains focused on saving Mr. Krabs' life. We'd also argue that the movie's story is just a bit more tightly written than the musical's, always moving forward and always having another surprise in store as it continues raising the stakes. For as much as we love certain character beats or emotional beats in the musical, the nature of the production and the need to have so many songs can occasionally make the actual story feel like it's being unnecessarily dragged for the sake of squeezing in everything it wants to. Sure, it all comes together in the end, which is definitely nice to see, but the story in the movie just feels more solid overall while still having the time for amazing jokes. So for this category, we have to go with the movie. Moving along, let's talk about the visuals in each production. We'll start with the musical first this time, as it really is a spectacle to behold. It couldn't have been easy to translate such a cartoony show into live action, but the crew behind the musical managed to do the impossible. All of the costumes do a great job of capturing the essence of each character perfectly, without needing to rely on anything too bulky or silly looking. It truly feels like you're watching the human versions of these characters. Furthermore, it's really cool how the sets are made with everyday objects made to look like coral reefs and ocean junk. Not only is it creative, but it adds a certain charm to it, and it makes sense given that many buildings in the show are made out of found objects. Finally, we have to talk about the show's special effects, such as the simple yet effective ever-moving mountain that Spongebob and Sandy climb, the miniatures used for gags, or the cardboard cutout used to represent Old Man Jenkins getting flattened by rocks. Again, this musical wears its cartoony influences proudly on its sleeve, making the transition into live action just a bit smoother. But, all that said, Spongebob really does feel at home in its original medium, animation. Despite being made in the early 2000s, the animation of the Spongebob movie hasn't aged a day. Its coloring, shading, and animation itself are all pushed to as close to perfect as you can get. Character expressions and poses are also on point, leading to plenty of hilarious moments, and in all honesty, the film is just gorgeous to look at. It's everything you could want in a SpongeBob cartoon with a massive budget.
Right over there.
Really, the only effects that have arguably aged somewhat is the stuff with David Hasselhoff, and even then, it still works just fine given that it's meant to be cheesy and ridiculous. And let's not talk about the giant Hasselhoff they made, which just shows how committed they were to this one joke. We respect the musical for its creativity, but you just can't beat a great 2D animated film. So another point goes to the movie. With our next category, it's time to break out the guitars and ukuleles as we talk about each production's music. Perhaps it's a bit unfair to pit a movie against a fully fledged musical in this regard, but to be fair, the movie does have a couple of songs that have stood the test of time. The Goofy Goober theme, Now That We're Men, Goofy Goober Rock, and Ocean Man, which managed to become iconic despite only being in the credits, are all well known and incredibly loved. They ride the line between being actually catchy and fun to listen to, and being really funny without ever seeming obnoxious.
We are invincible!
The movie also has a decent score, and while no pieces in it stand out in particular, it still does a fine job for the movie it was composed for, though it does lose a couple of points for taking a couple instrumental tracks from the show itself. As for the musical, critics may use the old quality over quantity argument against it, but we'd like to emphasize that there are no bad songs in the musical, but some may qualify as filler to certain audience members. Enjoyable and catchy filler, but filler nonetheless. But we would have to politely disagree. Songs like Daddy Knows Best and I'm Not a Loser do a good job fleshing out the emotions of side characters like Squidward and Pearl, while Super C-Star Savior and No Control are fun subversions from the typical musical style. Then you have BFF and I Guess I Miss You, which are great songs that focus on the relationship between SpongeBob and Patrick. Hero Is My Middle Name and Chop to the Top are great encouragement anthems. Bikini Bottom Day is a perfect opening number, and as for villain songs, they somehow managed to make Plankton rapping work. If there's any song that is truly filler, it'd probably be the Electric Skates song in Poor Pirates, even though they were still a bit entertaining. But the true showstoppers are Just a Simple Sponge, which is pretty much the show's defying gravity in terms of both power and emotion, while also including some great visuals, and Best Day Ever, which takes an incredibly simple and kind of meh song from the show and turns it into an anthem about hope and standing together even in the face of disaster. We may still love the movie's songs, but with just these two numbers, the musical wins this category hands down. But real quick before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying this video and you want to do us a huge favor, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We ask because we'd really appreciate the help in getting to our next milestone, and we have a ton more content in the works that we can't wait to share with you. Which brings us to our final category, the themes. Much like their story, stories, both the movie and the musical take a similar route, being centered around SpongeBob's identity and him needing to prove to himself and others that he can do great things. The movie centers around ideas of childishness and manliness, with SpongeBob eventually learning that it's okay to like kid stuff and just be himself. That he doesn't need a mustache or a promotion or some other third thing to be a hero. The film does a good job focusing on this theme throughout its story, with many of the conflicts in the film relating back to the idea that denying who you are can just cause more problems.
How much did you hear?
It's a solid theme that just fits perfectly with the character of SpongeBob. The musical, meanwhile, is all about SpongeBob wanting to prove that he's more than just a simple sponge and, more importantly, trying to figure out what he brings to the table in terms of skills. He ends up learning that it's his bravery and his ability to manage and lead a team that makes him a great asset to Bikini Bottom. While the theme isn't as present throughout, the moments where it does pop up are incredibly strong, as well as really sweet. Seeing SpongeBob prove himself in the climax all while declaring how he isn't a simple sponge is just a perfect conclusion to his arc, as well as a true spectacle given how physical that scene is. What gives the musical a slight edge, though, is that it includes an additional theme of standing together and not letting things like fear divide and bring out the worst in us. Even when things look bleak, the musical encourages a message of hope and simply being there for the people you love. Even if the world is about to end, as long as you're not alone, it can still be the best day ever. And in all honesty, this is a message that feels needed, especially these days. Both the movie and the musical have important themes, but while we can't say that the movie is lacking just because it only has one core theme it focuses on, we personally prefer the themes of the latter based on the incredible execution, especially in the musical's finale. So while the movie may have a tighter story, better visuals, and if we're being honest, better jokes and more quotable moments, the musical has better use of characters that result in stronger emotional beats, a better soundtrack, and stronger themes overall. So for us, it's definitely the better production, if only by a slight margin. But let us know in the comments section if you agree, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.